What's that you say? Is Joe even capable of making a character that does significant damage without taking a whole bunch of reactions and using lightning actions? Well, challenge accepted. We're doing another character build here and talking about Marvel Multiverse. So I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there for a few character builds where I explored the limits of what is really possible damage-wise by simply exploiting action economy. As I've discussed previously, you can best ramp up the amount of damage you do in Marvel Multiverse by simply adding to your action economy. And this is because powers do not tend to overlap or be additive to each other in this game. As a result, if you want to add damage, you don't add to a single attack, you add more attacks. And there are really two great ways of doing this. The first is lightning actions, which adds an additional action and reaction. And then, of course, combat reflexes, which adds an additional reaction. If you do both of these things, you will be making somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 attacks in some way. And all you have to do is pair those 5 with powers that do a little bit better than average damage, and you're going to do significant damage as a character. And I want to step away from that for a little while. I've proven my point on it, and I might come back to it in character builds in the future, but is there another way? Can I find another way of doing really high damage in this game and at the same time not going into the super speed power set? Well, yeah, I can, and hold on, because this one's gonna get crazy. When the core rulebook came out, new power sets were added, new ones that were going to be interesting and exciting and potentially really powerful. And I made a video about some things that were new and different in the core rulebook a little while ago. But one thing that was important to note was that there were some powers that I looked at and thought they weren't just powerful, they could totally wreck your game. These were things so powerful that if a narrator was not prepared for them, then the entire structure of the game itself could go off the rails. And I said at the time, the one that was most likely to do so was time travel. I have not discussed the Omniversal Travel Power Set in a character build. And that's because mostly we think of time travel or dimensional travel as something that is story driven. In other words, if a player takes the Omniversal Travel Power Set, all of a sudden you might be going back in time and you as the narrator don't get to control that, which is interesting. I haven't explored it in terms of damage, but when I was building the end boss for my first long-term campaign, I built it around Omniversal Travel, and I found there are ways of doing ungodly amounts of damage inside of here, and that's what we're going to explore today. I'm going to do one of my shorter preambles and just end it there and say we are going to build a damage-dealing character, and we're going to deal damage predominantly through the Omniversal Travel Power Set. It's going to be a little bit of a Frankenstein's monster to piece it together, as you'll see, but it's going to be exciting, and I think you're really going to like where we wind up. Now, I'm not that great at naming my characters, so if you have a name for this character, pop it into the comments, but I will be calling today's character Over Again. Let's go ahead and do point buy, and we are weirdly going to be dumping our agility on this character. I've done a lot of high agility characters recently, and so we're not going to worry about that. We're going to take -3 in agility so that we can take a 3 in our melee, 2 in our resilience, 1 in our vigilance, 2 in our ego, and 0 for logic, giving us defenses of 13 for melee and agility, with powers 12 for resilience, 11 for vigilance, 12 for ego, 10 for logic. With all of that in the preamble, I can't go into Omniversal Travel at rank 1. It just doesn't work. We are going to be going into the Super Strength Power Set first, and we're going to be taking Clobber. Clobber is a very basic attack, and importantly for us, it does not cost focus. This is going to be the most focus-hungry character I've ever built, and we need to be able to attack without a lot of focus expenditure, as you will see. But we make a close attack, and upon a success, we do damage. Upon a fantastic success, we do double damage, and the enemy is knocked prone, which is nice. Next, we're going to take Brawling, which you saw coming from the defense scores just a minute ago, but this lets us use our melee defense for any agility-based attacks coming in, and we're never bumping agility on this character, so this is essential. Next, we're going to take Mighty 1 for a 1 damage multiplier for all attacks using melee, which is going to be all of our actual damage-dealing attacks on this character. Next, we're taking Discipline 1. Discipline 1 gives us a 1 damage multiplier for any attack using Ego, and it gives us a +1 to any Ego roll that is not an attack roll. I told you we're going to need a whole bunch of focus on this character, and so we're taking Battle Ready right up front so we get 30 additional points of focus. At rank 1, we are doing nothing special. We are going to just walk up and we are going to do a clobber attack. Upon a regular success, we'll do 7 damage per round on average, which is about the lowest I've ever done at this rank. Let's do our point buy for rank 2. We're going to bring melee to a 4, resilience is going to stay at 2, vigilance is brought to a 3, ego is now a 4. This is going to give us defenses of 14 for melee and agility, 12 for resilience, 13 for vigilance, 14 for ego, and a 10 for logic. So the first power we're going to take is Crushing Grip. Now, Crushing Grip is a reaction power triggered when a character is grabbed. It costs 5 points of focus and uses our reaction to make an attack against the resilience defense of the target. Upon a success, they take damage. A fantastic success is double damage, and they are pinned. Now you'll notice Crushing Grip is a reaction power based on grabbing somebody, which is absolutely essential for this character. This character needs to be able to grab somebody and effectively grapple them. I might as well get a little bit of damage out of it while I'm doing it, but it is that grab that we have to do. As a result, we have to be good at a melee check, which is why we have to put points into melee, which is why we had to go into super strength. So that's the reasoning for all of those thought processes. And of course, we might as well take our normal damage dealing attack out of the super strength power set, so we're not going into too many power sets down the road. But now we are going into the Omniversal Travel Power Set. And you might be thinking there's no way to do that because you don't meet any of the rank requirements. So we're going to be doing some surprising powers here. And yes, I said traits. I'm going to be taking 2 traits at rank 2, and that may be something you didn't realize you can do. But when you are taking a look at the ability to pick powers in the core rulebook, it says, and I'm going to quote here, if you like, you don't have to use all of a character's power picks on powers. Instead, you can trade them in for traits or even extra ability points on a 1-for-1 basis, meaning anytime that you want, you can forego choosing a power and instead you can pick a trait. So we are going to be expending 1 power in order to pick up a surprising power trait, and we're going to be using our trait for the rank for another surprising power. So that you understand how this works, we are going to go into the Omniversal Travel Power Set as our power set for this rank. When you use surprising power, you can bypass any rank requirements, but not any power requirements for powers that you choose. Therefore, I have to go into the power set as my power set for the rank. I have therefore only 4 powers for this rank from which to choose. I'm going to expend 1 of them for an additional trait, therefore 2 traits for surprising power, leaving me 3 powers I can choose. 1 of them is Crushing Grip. The other 2 are going to be Omniversal Travel powers that I am picking up early. The first one of those is Instant Replay. Instant Replay allows me to use my reaction when I fail any check to spend 10 points of focus and simply go back in time and try it again. That's pretty useful. But the main power we want is Time Out. Now, Time Out is something that is really important for this build, and it's also really difficult for us to pick up by rank 2. You have to be rank 4 in order to take it. You have to be in the Omniversal Travel Power Set, and you have to have the Instant Replay power. We have used surprising power and picking up an extra trait in order to make this work, but we now have time out at rank 2. It's a pretty expensive power. It costs 15 points of focus per round it is used for. That'll make sense in a second, and it can be an action or a reaction. If it is a reaction, it is triggered when us or an ally is targeted with an attack, and we get to stop time. Timeout allows us to stop time for every other character except ourselves. For every round of combat that we want to have when everyone else is basically locked out of time, we have to spend 15 points of focus, and we cannot do this for a number of rounds higher than our rank. So right now we can spend 30 points of focus in order to have 2 full rounds of combat. During this time, we have actions, movements, and reactions, and all of our allies and enemies get nothing. This is going to be stupidly powerful, and it gets more powerful the farther that we go. Meaning that yes, in order to do significant damage, I have done it by adding action economy, but I'm not doing lightning actions. And also, I'm going to be able to do this way more than just 2 attacks on my turn. So what does combat look like for us? Well, we are going to use an action to stop time. This gives us now 2 rounds of combat. We're going to use our action to grab an enemy. Right now, that is a grapple check, and that grapple check does not do damage. We then get to use our reaction for crushing grip, then we get to clobber and crushing grip again, because the enemy is still grabbed. If all of that goes off, we're going to be able to do 48 points of damage in a full round, or I guess full turn of combat. Let's go ahead and do point buy for rank 3. We're going to bring melee to a 6, resilience to a 3, vigilance to a 4, and ego to a 5. This will give us defenses of 16 for melee and agility, 13 for resilience, 14 for vigilance, 15 for ego, and still a 10 for logic. We have to go into yet another power set to make this whole thing really work. But we are going to go into martial arts, and we're going to do it for the same reason I've gone to martial arts a lot of other times, and that is to pick up like 1 power. But before we get there, we're going to pick up Mighty 2 and Mighty 3. We now have a 3 damage multiplier for all attacks with melee, which of course crushing grip and clobber are both melee attacks. So we're going to ramp that damage now. What we really want out of martial arts is grappling technique. Now, when we do a grapple, it can instead be a grappling technique, and grappling technique now does damage as well as grapples, which is kind of the whole point. Next, we're going to take time travel. We spend 10 points of focus, and we can spend either our movement or our action, meaning you can still have an action after time traveling, and we can just zip to another time. This is not going to in any way give us the ability to do extra damage. It's just crazy cool. And you now can manipulate the entire flow of time. Our trait is going to be combat reflexes. I'm not getting rid of all of my tricks, just lightning actions. We're not taking that on this character, but I will do combat reflexes to have an additional reaction. All right, so our full explosive round of combat. We freeze time for 3 rounds. We're then going to do a grappling technique against our enemy, and we get to do 2 crushing grips. Then, for 2 more rounds of combat, each one will have a clobber and 2 crushing grips. If we pull all of that off, we're going to do 270 points of damage. All right, let's do rank 4. We're going to bring melee to a 7, resilience to a 4, vigilance to a 5, ego to a 7. We're going to have defenses of 17 for melee, agility, and ego, 14 for resilience, and a 15 for vigilance, and 10 for logic. We are not going into a new power set for rank 4. I need all the powers I can get, and we're going to start with Discipline 2 and Discipline 3. We now have a 3 damage multiplier for any attacks that use ego, which we haven't had, by the way, and we're going to get a +3 to any roll that uses ego that is not an attack roll. Next, we're going to take Mighty 4 for 4 damage multiplier for all of our clobber and crushing grip attacks, which is going to be cool. Next, we're going to take Sturdy 1. We've been going without any damage reduction on this character this whole time, making it truly a glass cannon. I want to have some kind of defense on this character, so I think Sturdy 1 is going to be necessary here. If you've been wondering why I've been taking discipline powers this whole time, it comes into play now. We're going to take Time Travel Other. Time Travel Other is a action, movement, or reaction, which is pretty cool. And it costs 15 points of focus, and the reaction is triggered when an enemy is grabbed. So again, in order to pull this off, you have to be good at actually doing the melee check to grab someone. We roll an ego check, not an attack roll, an ego check against the vigilance defense of a target that we have grabbed. Therefore, the +3 from our discipline powers absolutely counts towards this check. This is why we've been putting points into ego. This is the reason why we've been taking discipline powers. We grab somebody, we can do damage, by the way, since we could use grappling technique, and then we spend 15 points of focus, roll ego, and if we beat their vigilance score, we send them to another time. Any time of our choosing. Prehistory, no problem. The year 50,000, no problem, whenever you want. And if that character does not have his or her own ability to travel in time, well, they're just gone. Time Travel Other is one of the most stupidly powerful things in the game. Used by a malicious character, this is death. This is world ending to any sort of a true villain that you run across. Your character might have very low defenses. Your character might not have a whole lot of damage reduction, but all they have to do is grab somebody, and they are likely to end them in the campaign forever. And let's make this even better. Let's take our trait as signature attack for grappling technique. Now, I could make the signature attack be for Time Travel Other in order to get the edge on that roll, but if we don't have the target grabbed, then we can't do Crushing Grip. If we don't have the target grabbed, we can't do Time Travel Other. So taking signature attack for grappling technique so that we have an edge on that roll is very important for us. And now let's take a look at combat. We stop time. We have now 4 rounds. We're going to do grappling technique and 2 crushing grips. And then we're going to do 3 more rounds of clobber and then 2 crushing grips. Please note, we can do this against the same character the whole time. And if we decide to just send them to another time, we could do that. But we're just taking a look at damage. If you pull all of that off, and there's not a lot of reason why you couldn't, you will do 468 damage per round. Let's do point buy for rank 5. We're going to bring melee to an 8, resilience to a 5, vigilance to a 7, and ego to an 8. This will give us defenses of 18 for melee, agility, ego, 15 for resilience, 17 for vigilance, and still only a 10 for logic. One day we'll have enough actual powers that we can take, like the wisdom power, but right now logic is definitely our weakness. At this rank, we are not going into a new power set. We're going to just play in the Omniversal Travel Power Set here. But we're going to start with Discipline 4. So now we have a +4 to that roll to send somebody to the Stone Ages. It's going to be awesome. We're also going to take Sturdy 2 for a 2 damage reduction. Absolutely essential on this character. Now we're going to take Time Travel Together. This is either standard action, movement, or reaction. In order to time travel with somebody, you must be touching them. If they are unwilling, you have to actually do a grapple or grab roll, and it does cost 10 points of focus. But now, we and anyone we're touching just time travels with us to anywhere that we want to go. And in this instance, since we're going with, we do not have to do the ego check in order to actually force someone to go with us. We just have to grab them. So if you think your ego roll might not land, there is a play here, and it's to use an action to grab somebody. Use your movement to time travel together, and then you would be able on your next turn to be able to time travel back out. And if you went to another time and the other person tried to attack you, you could use your reaction in order to freeze time and then time travel out. So there is a play to be able to lock somebody into another time and they get no ability to stop it. You don't have to roll so long as you do the initial grab. Next, we're going to take timeout bubble. Now, timeout bubble is a way of extending timeout for your whole party, which is cool. It costs 15 points of focus per round. The duration is really only one round in and of itself. It can be an action or a reaction. If it's a reaction, it's triggered when an enemy attacks you or your allies, which is cool. We create a bubble in which time moves for us, but not for our enemies. But that bubble only extends one space or 5 feet per each rank we have obtained. So our allies that are inside the bubble need to be within a certain distance. But if we pull this off, we and our allies get to act in a normal turn order and sequence, and our enemies do not. So all this monstrous damage we've been doing, now our allies get to do it too. And there's almost no way to basically destroy an enemy force than for your entire party to be able to stop time. Next, we're going to take Time Portal. This costs 15 points of focus, and it is a standard action. And we basically create a portal to another time. Any other time. We just create it. It exists as long as we hold concentration, and just about anything can move freely back and forth. If you have used something like this in your game, please tell me the crazy shenanigans that have happened with it, because I think it'd be hilarious. The trait we're going to take is Signature Attack for Time Travel Other, giving us an edge on the attack. That just seems prudent to me. Our combat strategy hasn't changed. We just have 5 full rounds of combat that we can use this for. So again, we're going to freeze time. We're going to grab somebody with grappling technique, have 2 crushing grips, and then every turn afterwards, it's a clobber and 2 crushing grips. Whatever we do this to is dead because we are doing, and this is crazy, 660 points of damage on average. Let's go ahead and finish this character off with point buy at rank 6. We're going to bring melee, vigilance and ego to 9, resilience to a 6, and we're leaving logic at a 0. This will give us defenses of 19 for melee, agility, vigilance, and ego, 16 for resilience, and 10 for logic. We don't have a lot of mobility in this character, so I think we're going into a new power set here, and we're going to go into the teleportation power set. The first power we're going to pick up is Blink, which allows us as an action or a reaction to teleport a number of spaces away equal to our rank. The reaction is triggered if someone attacks us, and this is going to give us just a little bit of self-preservation and mobility on the battlefield. That's going to let us take Teleport 1, which allows us to teleport up to 10 times our rank in spaces away as an action or using our movement during our turn. What's cool about Teleport is that we can use our movement, not our action or our reaction, and it does not cost focus. So if you go into your time stop, kill one enemy and need to get to another one, you can teleport using your movement and still have your action to be able to do a grappling technique. This is going to make you even deadlier once you've stopped time, as if we needed that. Next, we might as well take Flight, which is going to give us even more mobility in case we need to get to somebody that's flying during combat. Lastly, for us, we're going to take Sturdy 3 for a 3 damage reduction. If someone does manage to get an attack against us and we don't use a reaction to stop time or teleport out of the way, they won't do as much damage, which is nice. Trait at this rank, I'm going to say, is Taster's Choice. I have nothing significant to offer you here that is going to add to any of the significant things we want to do with this character. Pick something that seems flavorful to you. So let's take a look at combat. We are going to stop time and have 6 rounds of combat. We're going to be able to use teleportation as our movement to get to anybody we need to. And then we're going to grappling technique and then do 2 crushing grips. And we are going to, on subsequent rounds, do a clobber and 2 crushing grips. This means we get to make 3 attacks for a particular turn, and we're going to take 6 turns in a row. When we pull all of that off, we're going to do on average, and I cannot believe I'm going to say this number, 1,062 points of damage in a single full turn in combat. I want to put that into perspective. When I did a campaign-ending villain for my most recent full campaign of this game, I gave him 1,000 hit points, and that was the end of the campaign villain. This character could kill him in a single full round of combat, and it gets worse. I normally don't look at what a lot of people call burst, nova, or nuke damage, where you blow every resource that you have in order to do crazy amounts of damage one time. I'm really more interested in what does something do regularly. But let's take a look at our ability to nuke somebody in combat. How might we do that? Well, remember, when we use time stop, we are able to use any action that we want to. We can act normally, meaning any power that we could use, we can use now, and any ability or ability check that we might be able to normally use, we can use during a time stop. Let me point out 2 things that are actions and therefore are things we could do during a time stop. The first one is casting time stop again, stopping time within stopped time to give us even more rounds of combat that we can utilize without anybody else doing anything. The second thing we're able to do is a recovery check for vigilance. Remember the rules for recovery. I made a video about it, but you can use an action on your turn to roll a vigilance check. The target number is a 10. We have a +9 to this check, and so our minimum roll is something like a 13. And as a result, we're always going to succeed a vigilance recovery. You take the total value of your roll and then you multiply it by your rank. Now that is the amount of recovery that you regain. Here's what's really important. The average die roll is a 10.5 of 3d6, and we're going to round that down to be conservative to a 10 and add our 9, which means we have 19. 19 times 6 is 114. So an action on our turn, we are able to recover on average 114 points of karma. Let's say that we do this. Let's say that we blow every resource that we have, and I'm even going to be conservative here, and I'll show you how. But let's say that we stop time, use 5 full rounds of combat for attacks and 1 to be able to stop time again. And let's even say that when we stop time, we don't use our reaction for more attacks. Let's even say that. We do this until we're out of focus. On our last full round where we've expended focus, we now use 1 action for a recovery check. And let's even say we don't use reactions then to do any attacks. Then we do 4 attacks and then another action to stop time again. Do this until we're out of focus. If we do all of that, not even using reactions on the turns when our action is stopping time or recovering focus, we will have 48 full rounds of combat with 3 attacks each, which is 144 full attacks. If we pull all of that off and expend everything we have, we will do 7,056 points of damage. I don't know what survives this character. I honestly don't, because when I did the sniper, I said that that character was mostly single target damage, right? But I had to attack other creatures. With this character, I have no such restrictions. With our time traveler, we may attack the same target as many times as we want during a round when we stop time, with no restrictions and no powers that indicate we must attack multiple targets. This 7,000 points of damage is to 1 target if we want it to. And think of all of the other utility you can do by stopping time. By being able to stop time and travel in time, you are also an amazing utility character. And it would have been nice to get teleportation much earlier on this character's career, but honestly, who cares? From level 2, you are able to stop time and do whatever the heck you want. And it is marvelous. This character is so profoundly dangerous to the enemies on the battlefield, to the full plot that the narrator has actually devised, that it should come with a warning label. And please, if you are considering using some version of this build, please talk to your narrator before doing so, because you could absolutely wreak havoc on the world. But this is a rules as written nuclear bomb of a character. This is far and away the most single target damage I've ever done. It is probably the most single target damage I will ever do. It's not really that far off from the bodybuilder who did outdo this character in damage, but that was only when he hurled a building at 300 plus people simultaneously. This is damage to one target. That target is dead. I don't care what it is, it's dead. Truly an astonishing combination of abilities with some really cool utility at the same time. I am super proud of this character. I love it. If you want to build something like this in your game, let me know how that's going in the comments below. YouTube's literally made out of buttons. I hope you press some of them, and I'll see you next time. All right, peace.